Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the Just Make It Pretty podcast. Today, we are talking about the buyer's experience again. And today, we're going to be really diving into some of the experiences and some of the places where our buyers might get confused. I think builders work really hard to make amazing buyer experiences, but there are certain places where there's friction that we don't realize that we're creating, or experiences that we don't realize we're creating. So, that was the prompt for today's episode. I have a special guest that I can't wait to introduce to you guys. And yeah, let's get into it. This is going to be a great episode. Welcome to the Just Make It Pretty podcast, the marketing and mindset show for home builders and beyond. I'm your host, Sarah Haynes, and around here we go beyond pretty pictures and we get honest about what's working, what's not, and what it really takes to build better brands, better experiences, and better teams. You'll find creative ideas, practical strategies, and conversations that actually matter. I'm so glad you're here. Now let's get started. So my guest today is Nate Edwards. He is the co-founder and head of strategic partnerships at Virtuo. Nate, thank you so much for joining us. I am so excited to have this conversation with you today.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, Sarah. Nate Edwards, Virtuo. Ultimately, we're a buyer experience platform where we take a builder's customer journey, we connect that to their tools, their teams, and then the buyer's actual journey, and we really deliver that fully supported experience. So, in essence, we really connect customer experience to sales and financial performance for our builders.
It's amazing. I have really enjoyed learning more about what you guys do over there. And I think it's going to be a really interesting conversation today because, like we were talking before we started recording today, but I talk a lot about like the sales journey and like what our buyer's process is to get from interest to that contract. And then I'm done at that point. Like I check that off my list. I'm like, cool, we got the sale. But our buyers like have such a longer experience after that. Their house is being built and they're moving and all of these things are happening. So I think it's going to be a really good conversation to connect all those dots and like really think about everything that our buyer goes through.
Yeah,
Nate,
awesome.
yeah, I'm really excited. So Nate, if you want to give us a little bit of background for you, like how did you get into this industry? Where did you come from? The history.
Yeah, great question. So happenstance. So my background, I come from the corporate relocation world. So we were primarily a private moving company. We saw a shift in the market early 2000s. And so we really started aligning ourselves with energy companies and financial institutions. But basically we were tasked by these HR directors to build out these programs to help their employees assimilate to their new destination as effortlessly as possible. So what we thought was just moving turned into this really big thing. So we were providing this white glove experience for these CEOs that were relocating all around the world and supporting them from everything from their mortgage to like getting a visa or getting a cell phone. So there was all these different elements. And really that's where we learned that the transition into a new home is so much more than the move itself. It's all these other million moving parts. So long story short, we had that corporate relocation company. We scaled it, ended up selling it in 2016, launched Virtuo with the idea of let's make moving easy for everyone, not just executives, and got really involved in the home building industry. And once we started lifting up the rocks and really started to understand what buyers were going through in the home building journey, it's just really helped influence the direction and the product of what Virtuo is today.
Cool. So I've been all over your website and I was like looking at everything. Very nice website, by the way.
Thank you.
And I really love the way that your guys' product kind of makes the whole process like very streamlined for our buyers. And I think that's something that is a gap sometimes for home builders. So I'm excited to talk about it and to like intro the topic. I'd love to hear from like your experience. What is the home buying process like for buyers once they're under contract? From what you've seen, what is like the before?
Yeah, good question. So I think the easiest way for me to talk about it, it's almost the tale of two customer journeys. Our conversation before, it's like you've got this buyer's journey, and most builders, they're looking at it through the sales process and they're looking at, okay, once a deal goes firm, like how they're interacting with my brand or our experience and what that actually looks like. And that's normal and that's totally fine. And that's a great operational lens to look at it. For us, we look at it in a different lens. And that lens is like, what is the customer actually going through? There's so many million moving parts. So, like, the byproduct of buying that house is like, it's the most exciting thing. People are so excited. And then what are they going through? So like that actual process to transition to close and handover and beyond, like they're dealing with 20 at least 25 different service providers to actually get into that home, and every single one of those are coming with their own complex and disorganized and fragmented customer journey. So our perspective is really, how do we take this painful human experience and like how do we stitch it all together, because it's so much more than just saying yes. It's this really big journey, and let's support them and let's guide them all the way through it.
Yeah, for sure. I remember buying our first house, and we bought a lot and they were building our home, and there was so much anxiety. It's like I thought the anxiety was going to go away once we signed, and we were like, okay, cool. Like now they're going to put the house up, done.
Yeah.
But there was so much more behind that, and like I remember like being like surprised because I was like, why is the anxiety not gone? Why do I still feel need to manage it? And there's just all these things. So I definitely feel like that, but a lot of us in home building, we forget those experiences. Like we forget what that was like for us to do it, or maybe we haven't bought a new home ourselves. So I don't know. It's just so easy to overlook that when all of our goals are so focused on the sale, just getting that sale. So from your perspective, like where do you see those like little milestones like in that journey?
Yeah. Well, I think we just celebrated a big milestone. We just hit our 40th thousandth customer through our experience, which is pretty big. And so we've seen a lot. And I think like the anxiety component, it never goes away. But what I do think is it's not because buyers are really reacting to bad news. Where the anxiety comes is it's really about the uncertainty, and they don't necessarily know what's happening next or who owns the next step. So that's where anxiety really fills the gap. And so that's the piece that we're really obsessed about solving, is like really just solving that anxiety gap so people have got clarity throughout that entire process.
Yeah, for sure. A lot of the anxiety that I remember was like the only way we would know if something was happening on the house was if we drove by and saw it. That was
Yeah.
it. So there was a lot of unknowns. Like, I don't know if you've been here this week, like working on this house. Like, I have no idea. I'm just looking at visually what I can see.
Yeah, and that's just it. And site visits, they're not well received by industry. So it's just like, how do we avoid that? How do we give people like that whole anticipation, give them the answers before they ask the questions? And that's how you can win.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'm sure I was like my builder's worst nightmare because I always wanted to be out there. Like, I just want to see what's going on. But yeah, you don't want to have your buyers like driving by or like stopping into the work site. That's not safe. And it's
Yeah,
just not, it's a lot of that communication piece, I think, in pretty much all of our episodes. That's what things boil down to is like just
always. Yeah,
communication.
always.
So now let's talk about it from the builder side. And what does that internal process for the builder look like when you guys come, like before or as you're coming in?
Yeah, good question. I think, for us, there's people like you, Sarah, who are like obsessed about that customer journey, getting them to go firm. And that's awesome. That's the most critical step in the buyer's journey. It's like the second they actually become a buyer. But generally speaking, industry, it's just like that's where things fall off. And so what they do is they force a buyer into this really analog experience. And that 6 to 8 month build cycle, they're going through and they're pushing their customer through. And there's a lot of handovers, ownership becomes unclear. So there's a lot of things that are happening. And I guess really what we've learned is it's not just a painful, fragmented experience for the homeowner, it's painful and fragmented for a builder as well. So they've got multiple systems, they've got multiple tools, they've got teams, they've got so many different things. And it's disconnected. And so that disconnection leads to a lot of manual work. And that was really the biggest epiphany for us, is industry doesn't need another tool to solve this problem. It's not a customer portal, it's not another app, it's not another tool. What it really needs is like there's this orchestration layer that can really simplify everything. And so that's really been the gap that we've been trying to fill over the last few years. And that's been the evolution of our product. It's like just fulfilling that orchestration, because trying to change behaviors or change management and getting builders to do something new is different. But we just needed a way to bring it all together and just deliver it in this really beautiful way for a buyer without interfering with how construction does construction or how sales does sales and client care does client care. So there's a lot going on, but like being able to stitch that all together in that really harmonious way is the opportunity that we saw.
Yeah. Now, do you think builders see that gap themselves, or is this something where this is just how it works? This is how you build a house.
Yeah, I don't know. I think the more they look at it, the more rocks they want to uncover, the more they see it. Avid ratings. Obviously, our friends at Avid. I'm sure they're friends of yours as well. So they always post that one survey, and I can't remember the name of it, so don't hate me for that. But annually they post a survey, and what they do is they measure sentiment throughout the various stages of a customer's journey. And I think they've got like research discovery, and so that's like that whole buying process. They hit your website, they hit your sales centers, and that's generally neutral to positive. And then you get into like decision making. And so it's like that loan approval process. We're doing conditional waivers, like those things are happening. And then what is the sentiment? Like the second that deal goes firm, like under contract, like this is the most defining moment in the buyer's journey. And it is the height of excitement and emotion. And like customers absolutely love this moment. And so that's firming. And then the second that happens, you just see that fall off a cliff. Like all those different stages in that buyer's journey associated, like anything in between getting contract to keys, it's just shitty. And it shouldn't be. Like this should be such an awesome thing. Like a buyer just gave you they wrote the biggest check they're ever going to write in their entire life, and you just see the sentiment. And then you start to see things pick up as you get closer to closing, like that PDI or pre-delivery inspection. So now they can touch it, they can feel it, and it's this thing. And so that becomes awesome. And then they get the keys and that handover day, and it's boom, that's the second highest point of elation. And it's just like this customer is like so happy at firming, it's shitty, and then it's so happy at closing. They get the keys, and then you just see that customer sentiment just fall off a cliff again. And it's just like all that honeymoon phase of getting the keys. Like there's just, I don't know. So back to your question of do builders see it? I would say there's more data on Earth that suggests like they can see it, they can look at it every single day, but until they really want to start solving it and really understanding how to solve it, I think that's the two different questions.
Yeah. I'm in marketing. So like my whole part of my job is like before that happens, like I've said. But one of the things that we're always thinking about is like how can we make our customers as happy as possible so that they become our cheerleaders and they go off and tell their
Yeah.
friends, and like we create this vibe around the company. And so I work really hard at that with like branding and things like that where I've got the control in marketing. But that experience like arguably could last the same, if not longer, in that the building phase and then the after phase. Like we need to keep them happy throughout that whole thing, or all of my brand work that I've done over here is just for nothing. They're like,
So
they look great. The experience really changes once you sign. And that's a huge gap, I think, for people that are trying to build brands that are really recognizable and that have all these cheerleaders out there and like are household names. You have to keep it consistent.
yeah, and that's for us, it's like that's those transactional moments in that buyer's journey. Like those are your relationship building moments. And although all those different touch points, turn those touch points into relationships. And if you can do that really well, then it becomes that whole brand enablement piece. All the things that branding and marketing are trying to do, that tail end it's the most critical part.
Yeah, that's what you're gonna be left with at the end, right? It's like the last bite. That's
Totally.
what you got. Yeah. So now one of the things too, I always, like I said, everything goes back to communication, but I also think it goes back to culture in your company. So do you feel like this disconnect that's happening, is it communication, or do you think it's a culture problem too, or maybe a combination?
I don't know. Like I don't think it's a culture problem as much as it is a systems problem, even a communication problem. Like I think when teams are forced to work like across disconnected tools, like communication breaks down. It's like those are the byproducts of the things. I deep down believe every single stakeholder in a home builder like wants their customers to feel great. I don't think that it's anything but that. So I don't think it's a culture problem, but more of a systems problem. And I think, like information usually breaks down at those handoff points, and it's because it's a systems problem. People are really like, okay, I've done this, and like my job now is done, and so then it gets handed over to the next or the next person, and so now like construction, they're doing their thing, and it's just okay, my job is now done, and so client care or warranty, it's okay, now here's my job, and it's just there's so many different silos, and it's just I feel like people are industry could be somewhat myopic in thinking where they're thinking about like these different phases in the journey as opposed to thinking about that end to end journey. And that's just their journey. They're not even thinking about what the customer is actually going through. So there's a bunch of different things. So yeah, culture, I don't think so. I think it's all systems, and it's just systems and processes that are designed to really help them get their job done. But the opportunity is to start thinking about it a little bit differently.
Right. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I think I work with a lot of home builders. I talk with a lot of sales and marketing leaders, and we all care deeply about the customer. And these kind of gaps or whatever, however those come up for the customer, it's never like really an intentional thing. We're not like, oh, we're just gonna drop them.
Totally.
Like, thanks for
Yeah.
your money. Bye. I've never heard that kind of vibe from a company. But I think it's just the lack of that, like you said, like looking at everything holistically, like the entire process.
Totally. Totally. And I think that's like I said, like that's the biggest opportunity. It's just once you start looking at it from a different lens and start thinking about not just, okay, my job is done, but start thinking about, like, okay, what can we anticipate next, or what can our buyer anticipate next? And then when you can start serving that buyer throughout those things, leveraging the insights that you already have, like you can really get
Yeah.
great.
Yeah. Yeah, basically what you're saying is the culture is already there. It's just like a continuation. You just have to continue to push the same values that you already have.
Exactly. Exactly. I would also say too, it just comes down to that customer ownership. And we've got a lot of builders where ownership is very transactional throughout the journey. Sales will do sales, and then everybody has their own way, which is totally fine. But who's really holding that buyer's hand like end to end, and who is accountable? And those handovers is where opportunities start to show themselves. But if you have that ownership piece solved, and once you can really focus on like really improving that buyer's experience, that's how you're going to get the happier buyers. And then once you get the happier buyers, then you can start connecting that to like sales and sales efficiency and all the other things that everybody's thinking about right now. But for us, it's all about who owns the customer and how do you make that great.
So when the buyer's going through this whole process and they start feeling something's off, or there's some sort of not as great experience happening for the buyer, how do they signal that this is happening? Like, how do they articulate, hey, we didn't love
Yeah.
this part of the process?
I think signals something we look at all the time. I think there's two big signals that you can understand their frustration through observation, and they're polar opposites. But one would be like that buyer who starts to over communicate, that buyer who starts showing up on site. They're going outside of their process to get answers. They're talking to construction managers, they're talking to the salespeople, they're trying to talk to all these different people to get the information that they're looking for. And so that's customer A. And then you've got customer B. And so this is the customer who becomes just generally disengaged. So like fewer responses, shorter messages, like you're starting to see it. So like you just need that steady communication. And like when it goes to one extreme or to the other, that's where you know that there are some signals that like something is off. It is a feeling, but definitely a feeling that most builder teams can observe.
Yeah. So I'm customer A is what you're saying. I'm gonna
Yeah,
overmanage.
I'm customer A too.
Yeah, no, I
Yeah.
can definitely see that. They start feeling like they need to manage the project because they don't have any clarity on where things are at. So I better get involved.
Yeah. And it's almost like, they need to manage it because they're not being managed. And so when they're not being managed, like the definition of that is like they just want clarity. And so as long as you can provide that clarity and help them anticipate and guide them and show them the way, I think that's the easiest thing. We talk about communication, but it all comes down to communication. Just be that trusted guide, show them the path, show them the way, and then you're not going to get customer A, you're not going to get customer B, you're going to get that steady Eddie right in between.
Yeah, that's the dream client that we're all looking for.
The dream client. Totally.
Let's say you've got this all figured out, right? And you've got this dream client. How do you feel like that changes on the buyer's side, or sorry, the builder side? So the builder team now has this buyer that's super happy. The system seems like much more cohesive. What does that change internally?
I think it comes down to a couple of different things. I think buyer confidence, we know that's an issue right now, but if you can exude that confidence internally, that will naturally exude externally. So it's almost that feeling like this is still it's the most expensive purchase anyone will ever make. This is insanely expensive. It's insanely emotional. This is this thing. And so if you can exude that confidence internally, naturally they'll get that externally. So, when roles and timelines and expectations are clear, communication becomes more confident back to your builder, everything becomes more consistent. And then buyers, like they trust it. They really trust that process. So you got to solve the things inside to get the things outside that you're really looking for.
Yeah, so it seems like internally for the builder, there's just more visibility. Like your salesperson, your marketing person, your OSC, whoever can see exactly what that process is as well and follow along with the builder. So like their confidence in their own process raises. Am I
Totally.
understanding?
100%. 100%.
That's really interesting because one of the things that my partner Sherry, she's always talking about is when she was an OSC and she worked as like in marketing and then she was an OSC for a long time for a builder. And she would do on site, like she would go on site, she would talk to the construction manager, she would go and talk to the plumbing guy. And like she did these
Love
interviews
it.
and stuff so that she could learn the whole process and like that so she could like also explain it to buyers and things like that. And the builder that she worked with was great. Like they had a really good culture where there was a lot of that visibility. But that's not always possible and it doesn't always happen. I've noticed that's not always like something that people focus on. So this is the digital version of being able to do that. You walk through and follow the buyer's journey throughout the entire thing through this tool, is what it sounds like.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Like just understand what's happening. And I think for us, we obsess a couple of metrics that we obsess with, but we've got a trust score in our business. And I think about like trust in where those trust moments start to really erode. And I think like trust doesn't erode in the big things. Like big things happen and there's closing delays and they framed a wall wrong. And like those things are fine. And most people by and large are totally accepting of all of those things. But like where trust really breaks down is it's those small moments. So it's like they don't have clarity. They're getting inconsistent answers, or if that buyer is needing to follow up, or if they're being surprised by information, like that's where trust erodes. So the more like Cherry, for example, she was like getting invested in that experience and understanding the process. Like the more knowledge that you have, like buyers are curious, the more you can share, and it just really helps not only create trust, but it stops that trust from being eroded to begin with.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm always trying to build that into social media and show your buyers like the behind the scenes and show them things throughout the process so that they really trust that this whole process, that it's not just sales and like that you really truly do care about quality. And builders, any company really, they all have the same core values. We care about our customers, we care about
Yeah.
quality, honesty, whatever. It's okay, but like how do you show that? And like my world, it's like social media. Let's let people in, let's show some personality, but it's so hard to make sure that like what you're showing in marketing is actually accurate, and we want to show the very best, but we also want to make sure that it's accurate. And
Yeah.
so it takes a lot of digging deep, I feel like, to get all of that information with our current process.
Yeah. It's that, yeah, you have to, I guess from a marketing perspective, like you want to show them the way, but you also want that to be authentic and real. You don't want to just feed them marketing fluff, and it's just that's not real life. There's going to be highs and lows, and you just have to be their guide. Like you just it sounds easy. It sounds easy in theory.
I know. I think a lot of stuff that I say, it's like, just fix your bike journey.
Just do that. Yeah, just sell some houses. Easy.
And
Next.
I know. Yeah, that's just make it pretty. That's where the name came from. That's all we
Love
do.
it.
We just do things.
Yeah. Sweet.
So yeah, no, it's really interesting. And I think it's something that I've seen in the last year. I've seen more focus being put on this emotional journey that our buyers go through. I know I went to the Shore conference and they did this exercise where you assign those emotions throughout the process. So I do think like our mentality is going this direction, and it's really
Yeah.
exciting to see, because I think that this is such an amazing job that we have. Like, we literally are changing people's everyday lives, like having a new home to live in, and like the backdrop of their family and all these things. It's such an emotional field. And
Totally.
so I'm just like, this, it's really exciting to be like, oh wow, like we can make this even better and make this such a better experience throughout.
Yeah, I'm a girl dad, so I've got a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old, and so my wife and I, we always talk about like, creating these core memories, and like then I think about industry and some of the problems that we're solving. It's like we're delivering this core memory, like we are delivering this core memory, and we can't take that for granted. And so we just have to own that. We have to own that as an industry, as a brand, as whatever it is. It's just like we are delivering on that core memory, and from our perspective and our builder's perspective, it's just like that has to be awesome. It has to be, because if it's anything other than that, like it's pointless.
Yeah. Yeah. You can't go back and edit those core memories,
Totally.
unfortunately.
Totally.
All right, let's see. So if you were to give our industry like your best advice, like the one thing that you're like, take this away from this episode, and if you do this, my job is complete, what would that be?
Simple exercise, something anyone could do today. Go talk to your client facing teams. So, like your sales teams, your construction, your client care teams, your warranty teams, and pull those teams to provide you with their top 10 FAQs from your buyers. Like those frequently asked questions, the questions they get asked every single day. And once you understand that, like start paying attention to where those buyers are asking and like what questions are they asking. Because if they're asking the same question, therein lies your opportunity, because repetition usually means it's something that's not clear, it's not shared, it doesn't stick, or there's friction. So the answers are within your teams. Give people the answers before they ask the question. And if you can do that just one thing, you will drastically improve your buyer's experience.
Absolutely. I love that. I love that so much. And that helps so many different departments too, because I'm thinking like
Yeah,
your
everybody.
marketing, your OSC, your sales, everybody with that kind of clarity would be able to just really, it's like a concierge, you right? Like you're just like, here, let me take you to the next step. And like it's so effortless for the buyer.
Exactly. Exactly.
Nate, let's say that one of our listeners or many of our listeners hopefully want to get into contact with you. Where are you on the internet? What's the best way?
Yeah, hit me up on LinkedIn. I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. Happy to chat. Email, great way to get a hold of me as well. Nate@virtuo.com. Yeah, drop me a line. Would love to chat. I'm obsessed about this stuff.
All right, awesome. I will put all of those links down in the description box, as I always do. Please reach out to Nate. Virtuo is an awesome company. I'm really excited to see the things that you guys are doing. And I would love it if anybody has any insights or questions, anything like that, reach out to Nate, but also drop them in the comment box as well. I'm always in the comments and I can tag Nate as well, so he can answer any questions or get into contact with you. But it really helps us when we're going through these episodes. What are your questions? What things do you wish we would have talked about or anything like that? Like I would love to be able to put that into a future episode or come back and answer those. So do that. Like the podcast, follow us everywhere. Trying to think, what are all the other internet things? If you can do it on the
Do
internet,
all
do
those things. Do all of those things.
yes. Thank you, Nate, for being here. Thank you for donating your time. This has been such a fun conversation.
Yeah, Sarah, thanks for having me. I love what you guys are doing. Keep doing it.
Absolutely. I plan to. This year is going to be amazing. And we have lots more really interesting topics coming up. So I'm really excited about it.
2026. Let's go kick some butt.
Let's do this. All right. All right,
Amazing.
everybody. Thank you for being here with us today. We will see you in our next episode. And yeah, see you next time.
Awesome. Thanks,
Bye.
Sarah.